stable situations.
From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Portland, Oregon, I'm George Thomas, and we are visiting with team member Tony Macri. Tony, it's great to catch up with you. You're like a bazillion miles away in China?
Yeah, that's right, George. Thanks for having me.
It's really great to connect. And we're going to be talking about an article you wrote about core tension. So core tension, I think there's a tendency for a lot of us to think, okay, that means tightening up my abs. And the thing is, I never see it like riding your snowboard looking like this, or anybody that's any good. And the core is not just up here in our abs, is it? There's a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot more in the core. And, when we talk about core tension, we talk about like the abs, the lower back, the obliques on the side. So everything kind of in the middle of our body, really, and how we're using it. And again, not just about tensioning it, but stretching it, using it in the preparation of rotation, but also in a preparation of just kind of tightening it to manage the upper body for balance, so allowing the lower body to move freely while the upper body is staying a little bit more balanced and tight to manage unstable situations.
Would core engagement almost be a better term?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to engage it for sure, but tension happens sometimes not just from the tightening, but also like the pre-winding with a rotational piece. So it's when the muscles kind of come together and tighten. And in the article we talk about kind of 3 different ways to deal with muscle tension. We talk about concentric, eccentric, and isocentric. So whether that's we talk about, like, for example, I give a couple different examples of, like, if you were to go ahead and flex your bicep, for example, the idea of the concentric being the bicep, right, when the muscle's getting shortening, and then the eccentric is like the tricep on the flip side, the muscle lengthening. And then obviously isocentric is when muscles are working together to create that tension. And in the article, I talk about all 3 of these contractions and how we use them to our advantage in different types of riding on our snowboard.
And do you always have those muscles somewhat engaged, ready to go? Because, I mean, if we're not, we're obviously just going to be a noodle. But at the same time, it can be exhausting to think about having your muscles engaged all the time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're not always just riding under tension like that. It's there's times when we tighten it up. There's times when we want to be a little bit looser and things like that. There's times when we create like some upper body rotation and stuff like that. And by pulling upon another, that will also engage different types of it, whether it's the obliques on the side or whether it's the lower back, things like that. But yeah, and a lot of it's like whether we stand up a little bit taller versus whether we kind of crouch down a little bit and roll the lower spine. Different applications cause for different methods for sure.
I want to get into the concentric, eccentric, and isometric some more, but at the same time, can we bring up dirt and how that's involved with this? Duration, intensity, rate, and timing. Or is it still cool if we're freestylers to call that TURD, which was timing first, intensity, rate, and duration?
Yeah, I think, however you want to use that acronym and you want to flip the words around, it really doesn't matter. I think it's written in the freestyle manual as TURD, which is, people enjoyed that a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. It's, with anything, whether first of all, it's the accuracy of the movements, and then it's about, the timing is absolutely key. So the T in dirt or TURD is more about the timing and when something happens. I think that's key. With the intensity of the movement, really with that, when we start talking about a lot of rotationary movements, and for example in freestyle we use a lot of upper body rotation to start a movement to kind of set your trick. There's a lot of intensity to that, so it's a larger movement and it's a larger group of muscles that we're using to make that larger, more intense movement as that set. So I think that really applies. Then the rates, which for snowboarders, this is a newer term. We haven't really adopted that for years and years. For snowboard, we were using TID, timing, intensity, and duration. We took on more the rate. I know the alpine world were using that for years and years. The rate refers a little bit more to the speed of a movement from one movement to another, and the rate is how we kind of measure that, and that is absolutely key. When we start talking about the rate in which we move, or the rate in a movement pattern, we start to get a different outcome. So that's where we started really to adapt that, and being crucial. And obviously the last one being duration. How long we hold on to that movement or don't hold on to that movement is a key to the outcome as well. So really, it's all of these being blended and working constantly together to get the outcome that we're desiring.
And I remember I was recording something from the freestyle manual, which was why I really TURD stuck in my head. But at the same time, there was a reason why you had timing as first, or was that really more important in the order that the words were put together?
I mean, there is that, like, for sure. It's about, when you look at like the sequence of events as it comes into a trick. The timing and when you start that with the whole piece of like ATML, right, is kind of where we laid it out. Because generally in freestyle, we're looking at a one-off outcome, right? Whereas like in a series of turns, the outcome continues to repeat itself. So that's the biggest piece, is why that timing piece came first.
How, when we're skiing or riding, can we take this and really use it to make ourselves better? Because there's a lot there to be thinking about as we go into our turns. And a lot of times I think we do get very caught up in what we're doing. How can this become really more natural in what we're doing? Does that make sense?
That's absolutely makes sense. And actually what you just said, the natural piece is what comes to mind. We talk about it all the time, with the idea of flow and the state of flow. And when you're in the state of flow, if if the timing is just right, the intensity is just right, the rate, the duration, everything is just right, the outcome is the desired outcome. It's when we start to overthink things that it slows down, when the movement starts to happen. And then therefore sometimes when we're late, we tend to give too much intensity to the movement because we feel like we need to catch up and hurry up. And then all of a sudden the movement is rushed, so the duration is shorter, and the rate it might be a little bit too fast, and therefore the outcome, we can't manage the outcome, or maybe the outcome isn't the desired outcome. So truly, it's important to be able to understand the movement first, and then as you go and make the movement, it's truly to be in the flow of the state of flow, or the flow of the situation at that time is absolutely crucial, for sure.
How do you introduce this in your lessons?
You mean the dirt or the TURD, for example?
Right. Do you introduce all of it together, or do you break them up?
No, absolutely. This the key of getting being aware of this is breaking it up, right? And generally, especially when we're introducing new movement patterns, out of all four of those, I would say the intensity is the lowest. We limit the intensity. For example, like, when you're doing, like, hey, I'm going to work on, George, you and I are going to work on 360s. We're going to work on a slow, easy spin. Maybe it's just on the ground, right? So the intensity of the pop is very low. The intensity of the rotation is really low, as well as the fact that we're moving slowly. So we understand the direction of movements. We understand where the movements are coming from in our body. And then maybe we'll do half the movement. So maybe the duration will be really short as well. And then maybe we'll do that. We'll set the timing of this movement maybe on the ground, and then we'll time it to a roller, and then we'll time it to the lip of a jump, for example. So Absolutely. We're constantly tweaking TURD for sure, as we're working through it, and then obviously when it comes to the final outcome, we need to make sure we're accurate on the TURD as it pertains to the feature, whether it's the lip of a jump, whether it's a rail and things like that, to be able to once you match it to the feature, is when you get the desired outcome for sure.
So I know in the article you referred kind of prepping your core, being ready, like getting ready to take a punch in the stomach. Is that something you would expound on a little bit?
Yeah, I talk about this all the time, getting ready to get punched in the stomach. So in other words, if you had your chest up and, like a proud moment and you're kind of pushing your chest out, for example, you kind of like start to open up and expand your abs. Whereas like if you roll your spine a little bit and like someone's going to punch you, you're going to kind of tighten your core and roll your spine. So that tends to get into that situation where you talk about like locking the core. So whether we come into a situation where we create rotation, and then we roll our stomach just at the time of pop, that allows our upper body to create a rotationary movement and then lock it into the lower body, allows the lower body and upper body to come through a rotation. So that's one kind of scenario. Another thing that I like to do is a lot of times when we talk about retracting the legs and pulling the legs into the core, is I'll actually have people lay on the snow and take their glove off, put their hand underneath their jacket so they can feel their belly as they pull their legs in, and they can feel their core, like their muscles tightening. This is a great example of why we talk about pulling the legs in and being small in the air. As we tighten our core, we're allowing our bodies to balance a little bit more in the air.
Now, one of the things you do mention in the article is that really kind of a loose core is the reason a lot of people aren't successful with a 360. Why is that?
This because about a lot of times with freestyle, we're dealing with a big explosion of movements, and then all of a sudden, then from there we're reliant on how we set up that movement to then going through the flight of the trick, right? So we're in the air, we're going through. So once we're in the air, we don't have the ability to make a lot of adjustments other than what we can do with our core. So we've already set the movement in pattern off of the snow. We're in the air. So if we don't tighten the core, then all of a sudden our body will tend to drift from the initial set of the movement. So if we do a big, like aggressive, intense movement, sometimes it's too intense, and the movement will continue, and we can't slow down the movement or speed up the movement. If we don't tighten our core, we don't have as much control of the lower body. And that's when things get a little bit loose in the landing.
Trying to stay sharp this season? Check out the national and regional events calendar at thesnowpros.org/calendar and find the more than 3,000 events that we host annually. Whether it's a local clinic or a big mountain event, there's something happening near you.
So are you saying we should make sit-ups a big part of what we do, or really a more variety of exercise for whole body fitness as we're exiting the season, getting ready for more dry land work, or going into a season?
Yeah, for sure. It's the body of work, It's sit-ups. Sure, sit-ups are great, but a lot of there's a ton of other things like planks and side planks and lots of like little leg lifts and little flippers and things like that. There's lots of things we can do to manage and have keep working our muscles through our core, whether it's again that lower back, keeping the lower back strong, keeping the core tight, things like that. Working the obliques, a lot of rotationary and side movements and things like that are absolutely key. And they're great for a lot of the summer sports that we do as well.
Just listening to you, I've been thinking I really need to start doing a lot of side planks. From the beginning of this chat, it was like, yeah, you really need to introduce a lot more just whole body exercise into the routine and keep that going year round.
Yeah, for sure. It keeps us strong, keeps us fit. Obviously movement is key to being fit and healthy as well, for sure. But whether it's creating a movement in a freestyle world, or whether it's stabilizing ourselves, as we go through terrain as well. In the article, we don't just talk about the freestyle world. We talk about free riding. We talk about, managing the forces when we carve. We talk about managing terrain when we're going through the bumps and things like that. So there's so many things that we are reliant on with managing the middle part of our body, be it the core, that is absolutely key to success for balance. All the things that we do in the summer, whether we're like surfing behind a boat and things like that, or just surfing in the ocean, or skateboarding, biking, things like that. There's so many things that we use our core for. It's absolutely crucial.
Now, you do mention a way to really have fun with your friends in this article too, which is have one of your friends close their eyes and then you shake their board. Can you get into that and explain that a little bit?
Yeah, this is just this is a way to feel like instability, in a safe environment without actually like riding and moving just yet. So the idea is like, how you if ask your friend to just kind of stand there and just relax and enjoy having a moment to themselves and close their eyes, and then as you kind of roll up kind of next to them and just kind of shake their board a little bit, you'll notice their instant reaction is to generally get a little bit smaller and to try to balance so that they don't fall over. That's an example of how they instantly, like not even thinking about it, tighten their core and help try to stabilize themselves. So yeah, I use that as an example to show the importance of being able to do this and engage our core.
So you're saying when we get scared, it's kind of natural for us to turd. Huh.
I mean, that could happen to some people. That becomes really scary, and that's a completely different situation, I think.
So core tension, I mean, this is a topic that we talk about a lot, but does it get kind of lost sometimes in our lessons? How is this something we can really make a part of our lessons really from day one on through? I mean, because this is really something we should be focusing on.
It absolutely does. And day one, skiing and snowboarding, we always talk about telemarketing, anything that we're kind of sliding on. We talk about how we stand on our gear, right? And we talk about how we flex our ankles, knees, and hips, but we don't always talk about how we maybe flex our spine a little bit, kind of tighten up, kind of set ourselves. Alignment is a big piece. Sometimes when we're really open on our snowboard, for example, our core will be engaged a little bit differently to when we can align our shoulders with our hips. So absolutely, when we're talking about it from day one, from an alignment issue, from a stance and balance issue, all the way through to creating powerful movements in the freestyle and free world, our free ride world, for sure.
Now, Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us from China. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. Anything you'd like to add in conclusion?
Yeah, I think understanding that, like things don't start with the core. Things like there's lots and lots of different applications for how we manage our core, but it's about using core tension as a way to help balance our upper body so that the lower body can be free of movements and allow all kinds of movements to happen with the lower body, whether it's flexion, extension, or rotation of our femurs and things like that, to help create some energy and then be able to balance up top. When you see somebody doing a freestyle trick and it looks really smooth and it looks really easy, generally it's because they're using core tension to balance themselves as they're moving through the air. It's the same thing when they're carving and their skis and their snowboard is moving out from underneath them and their upper body seems to be like through the air, like seamlessly balanced. It's a lot of that core tension that allows people to be balanced and make things look easy with their active legs below. Same thing when they're
Gosh, you're making me think of divers, freestyle. I mean, there's so much
balance themselves as they're moving through the air. Absolutely, it's the same thing when they're for sure. Yeah. It's a great article, and I encourage people to give it a read. And feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions they might have after they've had a read of it, for sure. To balance themselves as they're moving
Tony
through
Macri,
the air.
Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's always great to chat with you.
Thanks. Likewise, George. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
From the
Tony
PSIA
Macri, Satellite
It's the
Studios
same
in
thing when
Portland,
they're
Oregon. I'm George Thomas. Fantastic. Tony